"I wish you were my son," my father said, his voice low and begrudging, oblivious to the truth of who I stood before him. My brother Benjamin, seated beside him, let out a sharp, mocking laugh, muttering something under his breath I couldn't quite catch. This was it. The moment I'd been waiting for, the moment I'd confront the ghosts of my past. My pulse quickened, a storm of nerves and resolve surging through me. They had no idea who I was, but I was done hiding. I'd spent years building a life they never thought I could, only for them to come crawling to me for help when their world started to crumble. My name is Danielle. I'm 30 years old, a lawyer, a wife, a mother, titles I've earned through grit and heart. But to understand this moment, you need to know where it all began, the story of a girl they discarded and the woman she became. I was born into a family bound by rigid traditions and ironclad expectations. When my younger brother Benjamin arrived, everything changed. He was their golden child, the son to carry their legacy, flawless in their eyes. I, on the other hand, was a girl, a burden, irrelevant to their grand plans. At 6 years old, they made a choice that shattered me. They left me at an orphanage. They said it was for my own good, that I'd have a better life, but I knew the truth. They didn't want me. The orphanage was harsh, a place of cold walls and colder nights, but it forged me. I learned to fight for myself, to channel my pain into purpose. I buried myself in books, determined to prove I wasn't the failure they'd labeled me. That fire carried me through scholarships, honors, and law school, where I graduated at the top of my class. Becoming a lawyer wasn't just a job. It was my way of seizing control of a life they tried to erase. As I built my career, I tried to leave the past behind. I married Mark, a man whose kindness anchors me, and we had our daughter, a bright, spirited girl who's the center of my world. She's the reason I know what real love feels like, the kind that doesn't abandon. But no matter how much I focused on my new life, the question of why my parents left me lingered, a shadow I couldn't shake. Out of curiosity, and maybe a need for closure, I looked them up. They were thriving, or so it seemed. Their family business had grown into an empire, and they lived the life I'd been cast out of. It hurt, even after all these years. When I reached out to the orphanage, they confirmed what I'd always suspected. My parents never once came back for me. Then fate twisted. Their business started to falter, and in their desperation, they turned to my law firm for help. My boss, unaware of my history, assigned me their case. They didn't know I was their daughter, and I didn't tell them. I took it on, not for them, but for me, a chance to prove I could rise above their betrayal. Now, here I was, sitting across from the people who decided I wasn't worth keeping, still clueless about who I was. I chose to keep it that way, for now. My focus was saving their company, not for their sake, but to show myself I could face them and win. "Who do you think you are, questioning me like that?" My father snapped, his voice sharp as he leaned back, his eyes daring me to push further. I held his stare, my face calm despite my racing heart. "I'm the person you hired to fix this," I said firmly. "And if you want me to succeed, I need the truth about how your company ended up in this mess. That means honesty from everyone here." The room felt like it was holding its breath. Benjamin let out a scoff, shaking his head. "Typical," he muttered. "We're supposed to spill everything to someone who doesn't even get what it takes to run a business like this." My father rubbed his temples, his frustration palpable. "This company doesn't need lectures," he said, his tone clipped. "It needs results. We've wasted enough time." His words stung, but I kept my composure, a skill I'd honed over years of keeping my emotions locked tight. "Then let me do my job," I replied. "It's the only way your company survives." My father's eyes narrowed, but he gestured for me to go on. I opened the folder in front of me, scanning the documents I'd studied for hours. "Let's start with the lawsuits," I said, keeping it professional. "You're facing multiple legal battles, contract breaches, unpaid invoices, and claims of unsafe working conditions on your properties. The negligence alone could cost you millions in damages." Benjamin huffed, slouching back. "Those lawsuits are overblown. We've dealt with worse." I met his gaze unflinching. "Overblown or not, they're real, and they're dangerous." The unpaid invoices have creditors ready to haul you into court. And the unsafe conditions? One case involves serious injuries on a construction site. Preventable injuries. If that goes to trial, it could ruin what's left of your reputation. My father shifted, uncomfortable but silent. I pressed on. Your contracts are a mess. Most are so vague they're open to interpretation, and in some cases, you flat out violated terms like payment schedules or delivery timelines. That's not just costly, it erodes trust. And what do you suggest we do? My father asked, his voice gruff but less hostile, almost curious. Immediate triage, I said. Settle the most urgent lawsuits out of court. It'll hurt. But it's better than a trial. Audit every active contract and fix the weak spots. And set up compliance protocols to avoid more lawsuits like the injury claim. You can't afford another hit like that. Benjamin scowled. That's a lot of damage control, and a lot of money. It's all you've got left, I said, my voice steady. But if we do this right, you'll stop the bleeding and have a chance to rebuild. That night, after tucking our daughter into bed, I sat at the kitchen table with Mark, staring at my untouched tea. The dishwasher hummed softly, the only sound in the quiet house. Mark sat across from me, his eyes gentle but worried. Rough day? He asked. I sighed, meeting his gaze. It's messier than I expected. I knew this case would stir things up, but now I'm wondering if I'm in over my head. What do you mean? He asked, leaning closer. I hesitated, searching for words. They don't know who I am, Mark. My father, Benjamin. They have no clue the lawyer they hired is the daughter they threw away. And here I am, acting like just another professional. It feels dishonest, like I'm playing them. Mark nodded, thoughtful. You're not deceiving them, Danielle. You're doing the job they asked for. If anything, you're giving them more than they deserve by helping at all. I know, I said, running a hand through my hair. But am I doing this for the right reasons? To help them or to prove something to myself? Or to them? He took my hand. You're allowed to feel conflicted. What matters is you're staying true to yourself. You always do what's right, even when it's tough. If anyone can handle this, it's you. His words brought a small smile, but the weight lingered. I just don't want to lose myself in this, I whispered. You won't, he said firmly, and I'm here, every step. The next morning, I walked into the office, the previous night's conversation still heavy on my mind. My father and brother were due for another meeting, and I braced for more resistance. They arrived late, bickering as they entered the conference room. My father's face was stern, Benjamin's smug, like he'd already decided I was wasting their time. I greeted them coolly and laid out the agenda. Before we dive in, we need to address the contractor lawsuit, I said, opening a file. They're suing for breach of contract, and the damages could sink you if this goes to trial. My father's expression darkened. That case is nonsense, he said sharply. We've dealt with contractors like this before. They always exaggerate. With respect, I said, my voice firm, the evidence is strong. Emails, signed, agreements, missed payments. If you don't settle, you're risking not just the lawsuit but your reputation. Benjamin rolled his eyes. So we just cave and pay them? I'm suggesting a settlement to limit damage, I said, locking eyes with him. The longer this drags on, the worse it gets for your finances and your name. My father sighed, leaning back. How much will it cost? I slid a document across the table. I've drafted an offer that should satisfy them while keeping the hit manageable. It's not perfect, but it's the best option. Benjamin snatched the document, sneering. This is absurd. We shouldn't pay a cent. They missed deadlines. 2. Benjamin, I said evenly, this isn't about fairness. It's about survival. Fighting this in court could cost twice as much, plus the reputational damage. My father rubbed his temples, silent but considering. And the other lawsuits? He asked. I took a breath. There are 3 more. 2 can be settled with similar deals, but the workplace injury claim could explode if it goes to trial. I recommend a mediator to resolve it fast. Benjamin scoffed, tossing the document back. You're acting like the company's on its last legs. It is, I said bluntly, meeting his glare. And if you don't take this seriously, there'll be nothing left to save. That night, holding my daughter as she slept, her tiny hand clutching my finger, memories of the orphanage flooded. Back. The sterile walls, the lonely nights clutching my blanket, pretending it was my mother's embrace. She never came back. I remembered the day they left me, my mother's eyes avoiding mine as she whispered, "This is for the best," her voice shaking. My father didn't even show up, leaving her to do the dirty work. I could still see her walking away, my cries echoing in the hallway as the door closed. Looking at my daughter, I vowed she'd never know that pain. She was my everything, and I'd make sure she always felt wanted. Over the next few weeks, I noticed a shift in my father. His sharp tone softened when he spoke to me, and he started listening, sometimes nodding or asking real questions about my strategies. Meanwhile, his patience with Benjamin frayed. Every time Benjamin interrupted or dismissed me, my father's irritation flared. He'd cut him off or shoot him a look that could curdle milk. Once, during a heated debate about contract revisions, my father snapped, "If you'd paid attention to the details, we wouldn't be in this mess." I stayed quiet, watching their dynamic crack. It was strange seeing my father treat me with something like respect while losing faith in Benjamin. Part of me wanted to call out the irony, but I held back. This wasn't the time to reveal myself. I kept my focus on the work. At the next meeting, my father was different, almost warm. He greeted me with a nod and a faint smile, something I'd never seen aimed at me. When I presented updates on the lawsuits, he listened without interrupting, even saying, "That's a solid strategy." The praise threw me, but I kept my cool. "Thank you," I said, scribbling notes to hide the emotions swirling inside. As the meeting went on, he got personal. "You're sharp," he said, almost to himself, as I outlined the mediation plan for the injury claim. "Methodical. You remind me of someone." I looked up, unsure where he was going. He exhaled, leaning back. "My wife. She had a way of cutting through the noise, finding the right path. She passed away last year. She'd have liked you." His words hit like a sledgehammer. My mother, the woman who left me at that orphanage, who broke every promise, was gone. I'd never get to ask her why. The room seemed to shrink, my chest tightening. I wanted to scream, to let the truth spill, but I swallowed it, forcing a nod. "Thank you," I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside. That night, while Mark put our daughter to bed, I sat on the couch staring blankly at the TV. He came in with 2 mugs of tea, setting one down and sitting beside me. "You've been quiet," he said softly. "What's wrong?" I sighed, gripping the mug. "Dad mentioned my mom today. Said I remind him of her, that she'd have liked me." Mark raised an eyebrow. "How'd that feel?" "Awful," I admitted. "Not just because he said it, but because she's gone. I didn't know she'd passed. I'll never get to ask why she left me, why she didn't fight for me. And hearing him talk about her like she was some saint, it was too much." Mark took my hand. "It's okay to feel this way. You've carried that pain forever, and now it's hitting you again. But you don't need their answers to move on. You've built an incredible life despite them." I smiled faintly. "I know, but part of me wonders if hearing his version of her will change how I see her, or if it even matters." He squeezed my hand. "You'll handle it, like always, with strength and grace." Months passed, and the progress was undeniable. Lawsuits were settled or mediated, contracts rewritten, compliance protocols established. The business was stabilizing, and even the staff seemed lighter. At the final meeting, my father and Benjamin were subdued, less combative. My father stood briefly as I entered, a gesture that surprised me. "Well," he said, clearing his throat, as I sat, "I think we owe you thanks for everything." His words were awkward, like he wasn't used to gratitude, but they carried weight. Benjamin crossed his arms, less impressed. "Let's not go overboard," he muttered. "We're not clear yet." I ignored him, focusing on my documents. "You're not," I said calmly. "But you're on track. This restructuring gives you a shot, if you stick to it and avoid old mistakes." My father nodded, his face unreadable. We'll make sure of it. This company's everything to us. Studied him, the man who'd walked away from me without a glance. Good, I said. Then my job's done. As I gathered my papers to end the meeting, Benjamin leaned back, smirking. Guess even a broken clock's right twice a day, he said, his tone dripping with disdain. I froze, but before I could respond, my father's voice boomed. Enough, Benjamin, he snapped, slamming his hand on the table. The room went still. His face was taut, eyes blazing. That's enough from you. Benjamin gaped, speechless. My father turned to me, his expression softening in a way I'd never seen. I wish you were my son, he said quietly. The words hung in the air, and for a moment everything stopped. My hands trembled, but I held his gaze. This was the moment I'd been waiting for, the one I'd rehearsed in my mind for years. I took a deep breath, stood slowly, and let the truth spill. I'm not your son, I said, my voice steady but thick with emotion. And you lost the right to call me your daughter the day you left me at that orphanage. The color drained from his face. Benjamin's smugness vanished, replaced by confusion. My father opened his mouth, but nothing came out. The truth hit him like a tidal wave. You didn't even have the guts to be there, I continued, my voice rising as years of pain poured out. You let my mother do it, let her walk away while I begged her to take me home. And you never looked back, not once. I grew up wondering why I wasn't enough, why I wasn't worth keeping. And now you're here, asking me to save the company. You threw me away for. Well, I did it. I saved your company, Dad. I turned to Benjamin, seeing his bewilderment. You don't even know who I am, do you? I asked, my voice shaking with anger and disbelief. He blinked, defensive. What are you talking about? I laughed, bitter. Of course you don't. They never told you about the sister they abandoned. I straightened, my trembling hands steadying as resolve took over. I saved your company, I said, my voice clear. Not for you, not for Benjamin, but to prove I could rise above what you did to me, that I could be better than the people who left me behind. My father tried to speak, but I raised a hand. We're done. Whatever bond we might have had, you cut it the day you left me. That's on you. I looked at Benjamin, his eyes wide. I'm not mad at you, Benjamin. You didn't know. But now you do. Be better. Don't expect me to wait around to see it. He opened his mouth. But no, words came. For once, he was out of his depth. I turned back to my father, my tone softening but firm. You taught me something, at least. What kind of person I never want to be. For that, I guess I owe you. With that, I grabbed my things and walked out, leaving them to face the wreckage of their choices. That evening, I sat on the couch, my daughter in my arms, her tiny fingers curled around mine. Mark handed me a mug of hot chocolate, whipped cream swirling on top, and sat beside me. I'm proud of you, he said softly. Looked at my daughter, her peaceful face my anchor. I'm proud of me too, I said, a quiet smile spreading. For the first time, I felt truly free.